The Chunin exams have officially begun, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually enjoying this a lot more than the movie version. Lots of new characters, lots of crazy action scenes, lots to talk about, so let's jump into this episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations, where the Chunin exam officially begins. And this episode felt so classic to me. It felt like I was watching an old episode of Naruto. We're talking pre-Shippuden here. We're talking the original Chunin exam, with the introduction of all of these really great and colorful characters from these different places coming together to compete and use their minds, their powers, and all types of crazy ninja mumbo-jumbo. The best thing about this episode of Boruto, however, is how it actually expands on the movie. In the movie version, the very first round of the Chunin exam, they have the true or false quiz that we have in this episode, where when they answer true or false, no matter what happens, they end up falling into this massive chasm which is filled with ink. A big trap which was set up by Sai, and they have to stop themselves from falling in the ink using their special ninja powers. They have to see ahead of what's actually going to happen, and they have to risk it all in order to win. It worked in the movie version, but here it's expanded upon when we get this entire different part of the exam where they have to run through this forest which is filled with traps and all types of hilarity, like watching young children get destroyed by giant logs and explosions. It also means we get to see a lot of really cool cameos. We actually got to see the return of Tenten in this episode, who I'm guessing is the one who set up the traps in this massive forest. But another thing that I really loved about this episode is how they're taking the time to introduce all of these different fighters. That's right. We're actually getting to learn their names, their possible motivations here. It's stuff that was completely ignored in the movie, and honestly makes this episode worth seeing. And it's not just the people from the other villages, but it's the new characters that were introduced as teams in the Boruto anime series, such as Sumire's team, Metal Lee's team. Just finally getting to see them actually be a part of the story is really awesome, because in the movie it was just Metal Lee, and you never really learned much about his partners at all. Like, they never really got into it. Here we can finally delve into their stories a little bit more and actually care about what's going on with them, which I think is pretty freaking awesome. But as far as like the brand new characters that are introduced in this episode, let's just talk about them. First, there's Team Genbu, who's from the Hidden Stone Village, and these guys look really intimidating, but they're basically, I think, going to be the joke characters of this entire arc. I mean, they're made to look really scary and hardcore, but when they're running through the forest during the first exam, they're about to do this incredibly awesome technique, at least by the way that they're describing it, and they end up just sliding on their asses right into a big explosion, which makes them look really foolish, but also leads to a really funny scene of Iwabe being enamored by them because, of course, they're from Hidden Stone, and then, you know, Earth-style techniques are kind of his thing. We also have the three triplets from the Hidden Mist Village. What I do like, though, is that they're keeping the dream alive of vertical lines. The Hidden Mist Village just cannot get enough of them. The standouts of the episode, of course, are from the Hidden Sand Village, and that's Gaara's adopted son, Shinki, who just looks awesome. He's kind of a combination of Gaara and Kankuro, and I do love that he has the magnet release technique of the iron sand, which he's actually wearing as a cloak around his body, which, of course, allows them to pretty much destroy everything in this entire exam, whether it's defeating the wooden robots in the woods or just actually saving themselves from falling in the ink. He has a number of really cool, unique abilities, and his rivalry with Boruto is definitely one of the best things about this episode, especially because they both happen to be sons of Kage. It also leads to a scene that I think is just really funny, just saying it out loud. It seemed like every single ninja in the village that was in the Chunin exam was hanging out at this burger place before the actual exam began. It was basically just, again, an excuse to see Boruto and his friends interact with these characters, and of course to spark the fires of rivalry as well, as we also get the ninja from the Hidden Cloud Village. There's a Yurui who is blowing these bubbles that are like multicolored bubble gum, and he looks kind of like a little version of Killer Bee, except that unlike Killer Bee, he's like school in the summertime. no class. I do like that he has a little 8 tails necklace. I think that's kind of cool and everything, but really he's just sort of like the stereotypical punk looking down on what he considers to be the weakling. He's about to get into a fight with Boruto, but Shinki decides to break it up by wrapping them up in his iron sand, which is really cool. It's scenes like this that really reminded me of watching the original Chunin exam and the original Naruto anime series, of these characters meeting each other, there being immediate friction, and them already sort of like challenging each other. But really, yeah, it's basically an expansion of that. The whole brand new forest section is really freaking awesome and a lot of fun as they add a lot of really cool things like pitfalls and massive logs which smack into people, explosions going off all over the place, and I cannot talk about this episode without mentioning the robots. There are wooden robots in this episode and everyone fights against them, and it's really cool and it's really well animated. It's just very thrilling, and I love seeing that type of stuff and doing something a little different than the previous, while still sort of carrying sort of the spirit of it. This is definitely the Next Generation Chunin exam, and it just exploded off of the screen. The final part of the episode, very similar to the actual movie, where they go to the true and false, and it's all a trick. Even if you go true or false, you're still going to fall into this massive pit, which is filled with ink, and this is where they have to challenge themselves to try and risk it all to win. There are some differences here. One, I do note that in the movie version, Sarada and Mitsuki actually save Boruto. He's about to fall into the ink, and the kunai on the rope actually like goes into his shirt, and he doesn't actually grab onto it. Here in the anime version, he actually realizes he's about to fall and grabs onto it at the very last second, which is kind of a big change when you actually think about the repercussions of it, as Boruto does beat himself up about this, but he seems to have a lot more confidence in the anime version, as he at least realized that he had to grab onto this thing before he was about to fall in. I love the way that Shikadai saves his teammates by taking the kunai and putting it like right in the wall behind him, while using his shadow on his teammates who are just hanging below. Shinki, of course, uses his sand to raise everyone up. Team Cloud just hangs out on some bubbles, which I think is really awesome looking. Same thing for the triplets from Hidden Mist. They're just sort of hanging out on top of the ink, utilizing their chakra to basically stand on it. It's really awesome. I love the way that they've expanded on this arc thus far. I didn't even mention the way that Iwabe Denki and Metal Lee actually did it. It was actually Iwabe. He created these pillars which came out from the sides of the pit, and they all just landed on them, so it was impressive for them as well. Sumire actually used her Nue, I believe, to actually bring themselves up, or maybe that was the cattail. I'm not sure. It was really awesome that they included all of those characters, and it's going to be great to see them go on, because it means we're going to get to see them fight some more. The episode ends as our characters take a rest before the next portion of the Chunin exam, and we have a very sappy scene where Naruto is actually sending a congratulatory email to his son, which is very bad. He should not have done that. If he's trying to win over the favor of his son, I have to admit he's doing a pretty crappy job of it. So what's the rundown on this episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations? I really loved this episode. I loved all of the new stuff that they added to it, and just like the movie version, it was surprisingly well animated. I really loved all that. Taking the time to introduce all these characters is definitely the best thing about this episode, and getting to see all of their individual quirks and powers is just really, really fun. I'm not sure which ones are my favorite quite yet, but I have to admit I'm leaning towards Team Sand, if only for the fact that Shinki's just so cool looking. I just absolutely love his design. But every single one of them is unique in a way that I really want to see what they're capable of. It really does remind me of watching the Chunin exam for the very first time, where I actually didn't even read the Naruto manga at that point. I didn't know what was going to happen, and when all these new characters are coming in, it was just the coolest thing ever. And considering a lot of this stuff is expanded upon with stuff we haven't seen in the movie and manga, I love that. I really freaking love that a lot. Also, I'm just excited to see what sort of new battles that we're actually going to be getting for this exam. The implication in the next episode is they are moving on to something that we did see in the movie, but hopefully they'll expand upon it. A lot of the animation still looks very similar to the movie in many ways, but still there's a lot of big differences in this episode, and probably one of the most drastically different episodes that I've seen in terms of the anime adaptation from the movie version of Boruto. One thing that annoys me in this episode, and one thing that annoyed me in the movie too, and this is nothing about the quality of the episode, it's simply just some of the ways that they're characterizing Naruto, is just how such of a workaholic he is. I mean, even during the original Chunin exam, the friggin' third Hokage was allowed to sort of, like, watch everything and be involved in at least some form or fashion. But Naruto's always stuck in his office doing paperwork, and it seems like kind of just a stupid idea to keep him away from the story. And it's always really depressing to see because, man, it sucks to see, like, one of your favorite heroes basically be turned into a paper pusher. That being said, I've seen the movie version, I've read the manga, I know we're going to see some really great stuff from Naruto in this arc, and I'm very excited to see that. Another big thing about this episode is, of course, Boruto having his conflictions about the ninja technology that he's wearing, wondering if he's going to use it, when he should use it, and realizing that if he does, it could probably cause him a lot of trouble, but still, he's willing to risk it all in order to just try and impress his dad, whom he doesn't like, but he likes at the same time. He just wants to be recognized by his papa. That's all it is. That's Boruto's entire story arc right there. Recognition from his father, and to be the best like no one ever was. Catch all the Pokemon. Guys, this was a good episode of Boruto. It expanded on the movie in the best ways possible, and it made me care about some of these new characters who are all a lot of fun, which is why I'm going to give this episode, that's right, a 5 out of 5. Check it out, Boruto fans. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, and you can tell me all of them in the comments section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of the Chunin exam arc in Boruto. Thank you guys for watching this review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more anime reviews. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay damn now, baby.